So I have officially completed my DBI lesson. To recap, I have been working with a kindergarten student with ADHD who has trouble in math. We were working on word problems involving subtraction, decomposition, and solving them with number sentences and number buttons. So I taught my lesson, but unfortunately I was unable to film because of the nature of my classroom. I was having to teach while the lessons were going on. The way the classroom is set up, there's too many students, and also the student was not comfortable being filmed. He did not want to be filmed. I asked him and he was not okay with it. And then I tried to film, like I said, can we just try it? And he said yes. And he went from being the most talkative boy to completely shutting off and not working with me. He just completely turned off when it came to filming. So I decided to give in and not film with him, but I have all of my results, which I will show later on in this video. So during the lesson, I got to know the student a bit more, and I fully witnessed his ADHD in action as someone who has ADHD and used to be like him when it came to math. One of the things that I noticed he would do is when I was reading the word problems, he would immediately have to tell me a story involving the things in the word problem. And he would have to continuously crack jokes. So I was constantly trying to keep him on task and focused so that we could keep moving along, because he did have other stuff to do and I was pulling him away. But I think he also saw working with me as a distraction from having to do his other work. So the entire time he was having to talk to me, tell stories, tell jokes. He kept wanting to mess with my pen because at one point I did let him write with my pen when we were doing some practice. So he kept wanting to work with my pen. I had my laptop off to the side, and he kept wanting to mess with the cursor and look ahead on certain problems. So that is what I had to deal with during the lesson. Now, luckily, I was able to find ways and use methods, behavior methods to keep him on task, especially using his motivators. I used his motivators to keep him on task whenever he would get kind of derailed. And also I kept using praise because he wanted me to be his friend. And so if I kept being his friend, he was more likely to get back on task. So I'm gonna go ahead and show y'all the baseline data I collected as well as the test results from after each lesson. So before we get into looking at the work my student created after our lessons, I wanted to start by looking at some of the baseline testing that we did. So every problem in this lesson was a subtraction problem. We're working with subtraction decomposition. So I want to start by looking at this first problem here. So this problem was a word problem. There are 5 frogs swimming in a pond, 3 get out of the water. How many frogs are still in the pond? So we can see that in this problem, he is confusing the addition and subtraction sign. This is the case for the majority of the work that he created. He's confusing these two signs. So he did get all of the numbers correct in this one. So I would still consider the work correct, just not the sign. But I think that the main thing we're working with at the beginning, at least, is the numbers to make sure he is seeing that word problem, being able to identify what the numbers are and where the numbers go. Because as we can see in number 2, he got this wrong. So in number 2, the question is, there are 8 puppies in a store, 2 are adopted. How many puppies are still for sale? So we have that 8 and that 2, but the 2 is in the wrong spot, and I do not know where that 3 came from. So that problem would be wrong. For the majority of the problems he answered, he got them incorrect. And for many of them, like number 3, he got the entire thing wrong, where I did not know where he was pulling these numbers from. So the question was, there are 7 apples in a tree, 5 fall, how many apples are left? And he ended up giving me 6 plus 3 equals 3. I'm not sure where this came from, but he may have been looking ahead at the problems, because number 4 was there are 6 monkeys jumping in a bed, 3 fall off, how many are still in the bed, which he gave us 6 plus 3 equals 3. So I'm thinking that may be what happened with number 3. So that is the first set of problems, and then we have our last problem from that baseline test, which was there are 2 cookies in a box, 2 are eaten. How many cookies are left in the box? So I'm not sure where he got the 1 from, but he kept pulling a 1 when I was giving this problem for the rest of the baseline testing. So something I want to point out with this problem is this little drawing right here. He drew cookies as soon as I mentioned the cookies, and he did this for a lot of the problems, and I am all for this, except for I'm not sure where the 3 cookies are coming from in the drawing he did. So I think this also just kind of correlates with the fact that he is a child with ADHD, because as soon as I was reading the problem, he had to do the drawing. For a lot of the problems, when I was reading the word problem to him, he would immediately start telling me a story. So here are more of the baseline testing, and I'm not really going to go in depth with them because all of them are incorrect at this point. For example, this is the 6 minus 3 question. I'm not sure where he got the 8 from. We're working with number buns. I'm not sure what this is. I asked him what it was when he was drawing it, and he told me it was a secret. There are more doodles right here and right here. Here's some more doodles up here and over here. For this one, he did get, this is the 5 minus 3 problem. He did get those numbers correct, but I'm not sure what happened there. So this is just looking at the baseline testing. Again, here's the cookie problem, which is the 2 minus 2 problem equals 0. I'm not sure where he got the 8 from, but my suspicions were that he was just writing numbers to get through the testing, because he kept mentioning, oh, when I'm done with my testing, I can do this. I can go do this. So that is looking at our baseline test. So now we are going to move into looking at our test results from after each lesson. So here are the results from after the first lesson was administered to him. I wish I could have filmed myself performing this test and the lesson, but again, the student was just not comfortable, and I was not getting reactions, the correct kind of reactions from filming him, so I was not able to do that. So looking at this, we can already see a significant improvement with this first problem. Just looking at the first 2 problems, he got the numbers correct. He did get an addition sign right there, but over here he self-corrected and started drawing heavily instead of erasing, but that is a subtraction sign. I'm still not sure where the 3 came from, but he got the number order correct, which is a vast improvement. On this problem down here, it was 7 minus 7. He got that question right. He just used the addition sign, but again, that's making vast improvements because it's showing that he is understanding how to read the word problems now. And then on this one down here, he got it correct. I'm not sure what this number bun is, but he drew this one first and then drew this very tiny one right here. But I understand what he was trying to say, and we're still, at this point, we were still getting into working on the addition sign. Finally, here is that last problem. You can see I had to get up and move during this one, and he did switch over to using my pen, which I found kind of funny. But this number bun is very interesting to me, just because there's a circle, there's a triangle, and a heart. But we'll take it. Unfortunately, the numbers are incorrect. He did get 2 minus 2 this time, which is good, but there is no equal sign. There's addition sign and then the number 1. I'm not sure where that came from, but that was after the first lesson, and we already saw improvements he got 3 problems correct, which is very great compared to his baseline test scores. Here are the test results from the second lesson. His work started getting incredibly messy after this point, but I'm still able to understand what he was trying to depict because I was with him and watching him while he did this. So first off, there's a self-correction right here. He started out with each of these problems by writing the sign and then filling it in. So he started out with this addition sign and then moved over to a subtraction sign. And then he got all of the numbers correct with that one. For the second one, he also got the numbers correct. 8 minus 2 equals 6. It's a hard to read 6, but he started out by writing a 2, and then it moved into a 6. This last one, 7 minus 5 equals 2, got that. 6 minus 3 equals 3. And then 2 minus 2 equals 2. Not correct, but he's starting to recognize that there's no 1 in this problem, which is an improvement. Here are the results from the final test. So this first one, he got the numbers correct. The sign is wrong, but that's okay. For the second one, he got it completely correct. Third one, he got correct. Fourth one, there's some mistakes. And then finally, 2 minus 2 equals 0, which I'm really happy he finally got that one correct. So overall, I think this lesson was a success. Unfortunately, he did not get all of the problems correct in the end, but I still think that he did incredibly well and he learned a lot. We did have a lot to work with that I did not consider when going into this. For example, him switching around the signs, him not being able to identify the numbers. I think that's also due to the fact that it had been a little bit since they'd been working on decomposition, and he is also an RTI, so he was learning different things there. And then they're working on other stuff in class, and I think he was getting concepts confused. So I would say next time I would try to test closer to when he was learning the things, but I think it was a very nice review for him. I also would probably try to pull him at a time when the rest of the class is out of the classroom. So when I first started working with him, the rest of the students were in the classroom. Then they all left for music and I kept him behind with me for a bit. And he worked significantly better when the teacher wasn't teaching another lesson, which makes total sense. So I would probably try to keep the student alone with me for the entire period of doing the baseline testing and then doing the lesson and then doing the test. But I think there's not a ton else that I would change. I think I would maybe include some more visuals with the problems, although I think that also might distract him a bit. One thing that did help him is that originally we were using number blocks, and then after a while I was like, try to count on your fingers. He didn't want to do that, but I gave him my fingers to count on, and he really, really loved doing that. As soon as I would read the next problem, he would like grab my hand and start being like, okay, we have, and he'd count 8 on my fingers, and then he'd be like, okay, we're taking this many away, and he'd knock all my fingers down, and he was having a blast with that, and it worked. The problems that he was doing that with, he started getting correct. He just needed a little bit of nudging, especially when we were practicing, that he needed to look back over his work, because we were practicing, he'd be like, okay, we have 8 and we're taking away 6, and then he'd count down the 6 and he'd go, okay, there's 6 left. And I just told him, you need to you need to count how many are left. So I really just had to emphasize that you need to check your work and really count those numbers when you were taking them away and stuff, especially if you have that visual representation. There were some times when he did not want to use the blocks or my fingers, and that is when he would get problems wrong. So just creating that emphasis on taking away the numbers. I think something I would do with the practice problems is include them on a worksheet with the visuals. So let's say with the problem that there are 2 cookies, there would be a picture of 2 cookies and you need to X them out on your own. So that forces him to use those visual representations. But I think it should be a goal to get him where he does not have to do that, or he can count on his fingers. So I think that'd be something I would want to work on in the future.